Have you ever heard the tale of Skittles the Butt?
It's not. It's not one the Teal division would tell you.
It's not one the Scarlet Division would tell you. Anyways, I don't have any actual bits. I thought that was funny enough, though. It's like,
I figured you were already recording, so I just kind of went with it.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't have any bits. You know what? No bits. Everything's serious this week. Have you seen the stock market? It's crazy.
Hey, yo, have you heard about... I'm not saying that, never mind.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Double Dip Draft Week 5. Wow.
It's 5.
Five. Wow, that's so crazy. I'm your host, Cabral, coach of the Hatchling Age Slashers. Joining me. Yeah, welcome back. All right, we're here, we're ready, and we're gonna look at some fights in the Teal division. Before we jump in, though, I kind of want to look at these numbers because an interesting development happens. I feel like every week I've kind of been saying, "Oh, this is a big week. Oh, this is a big week," and week 5 is I'm gonna say the same thing, but I want to kind of look at week 4 because, as I've said before, this is where you really find out who's going to kind of make it to playoffs, who's not going to make it to playoffs. And with a lot of the scores across the division right now, we do kind of see that start to happen, but Teal's kind of interesting, I feel like. Starting at the top with Scoots at a 4-0 at 18. I think Scoots at this point is guaranteed into playoffs based on how he's been playing.
He's pretty much a lock, right? Like 4-3, the worst he can do is literally go even on his differential if he gets 6-0'd 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
He'd be 4-3-0, which in theory, like, would be falloutable, but it's incredibly unlikely, and that would obviously also have to happen.
Yeah.
So I think Scoots is pretty much got it locked in.
Yeah. With Not Pimp and Chemith at a 3-1, and then we have Firebolt and Nihilus at a 2-2, and then we have Miami Milotics, ASCII, and Miami Milotics and Snake, and then ASCII is the Philadelphia Phantumps. It's an ongoing battle. Every week I'm doing this. They're at 1-3.
Okay, I know.
And they're at a 1-3. And the differential, once you get to Not Pimp to the Philadelphia Phantumps, it's not that big. We go 8-7-0, -4, -2, -7. That's really close overall.
That is a gap that could feasibly, like, hypothetically, let's say, Not Pimp fights Philadelphia Phantumps and gets 6-0'd.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't, like, put Philadelphia Phantumps over Kracked Kricketunes, but, that's closing a gap of 12 differential, right? That would end at a +2 to a -1 diff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really damn close. And feasibly, barring, like, ignore 6-0s anyway, you could realistically make that up in 2, maybe even 3 games,
mm-hmm.
right?
Which is what's left.
So, yeah, and that is what's left. Now, I will say it is do or die time. ASCII and Snake have to start getting some wins, or they're out. But conversely, I mean, there's like some interesting dynamics at play up top. Kracked Kricketunes and Washed Up Wishiwashis are going to be playing this week, so one of them is going to incur their second loss. That makes them a little more vulnerable if, let's say, Nihilus or Firebolt picks up another win. But unless something really gives soon, the top end of Teal is going to be locked in, and those 2 buys are going to get yoinked.
Yeah, for sure. And we do, of course, have our new player, Dan of the Downtown Dragonites. He is at an 0-4 -20 at this place point. Goodness, I don't know what it is today. And he's pretty much locked in dead last at this point, even if he wins some coming up games and stuff. He's definitely at a disadvantage, and I don't think there's any likelihood, because even if he 6-0s his next 3 games, that's a 3-4 at -2? No.
He'd get 18, yeah, so it was -2.
Yeah, so possible, not likely. It's also, he's a brand new player too, just draft in general and playing Pokemon at this sort of level. He's played it before, but nothing like this,
Yeah. So it's never say never. Like some people, remember Lovin came in and totally slaughtered his first season. So it's not impossible, but obviously if you're inheriting an 0-4 -20 record, you're not really playing to win or make it to playoffs. You're kind of just getting your hands dirty and trying to experience draft. You know, in that way, you can kind of free yourself of the shackles of expectation. You know, you can just have fun, experiment, see what it's like. You know, and kind of a lower commitment. Like, okay, well, if I know I'm not going to playoffs and I don't care, and it's not even my fault, then whatever. Let's just play and have fun and learn it. And then maybe, you know, when he comes into a real season down the line, he can, you know, come with a little bit of experience.
Oh, yeah. And I helped him actually team build this week for his first ever match and go over a lot of the rules and sets and like how it all works, what we do on Showdown.
And who are the two people who are playing that first match? You do need to introduce them for video editing
actually,
purposes.
You're right. In fact, Dan is our first matchup we'll be looking at today. As I said, I did help him. He's of the Downtown Dragonites, and we do have ASCII of the Philadelphia Phantumps fighting this week. And I just want to say, Dan had a blast building and looking at Pokemon and stuff. And as we were kind of going over and looking at stuff, he started to get favorites for Pokemon. And I think this is like a draft thing that you don't normally get a chance to play with a lot of Pokemon. But when you start using them, he's like, oh, I really like Hisui and Electrode. He's like, this guy is so much fun.
He's cool. Yeah. I love seeing Electrode too. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting Pokemon. And it was very tempting on my end. I really wanted to pick it up. But
I also wanted it this season as well. And I think
I've heard it from a lot of people, yeah.
But yeah, we definitely see a pretty neat lineup. Now, we do know Dan has swapped out the entire team. No poison other than the last poison being Haunter, which wasn't even on Skills' team.
Yeah, so a full 12 for 12 swap, which I don't think has happened in any other instance.
No, I don't
like a team being taken over. You know, usually people retain at least one.
Yeah, he was going to retain Clodsire and Gengar, but as we were going through, he picked up Haunter because that's basically just a lesser Gengar. You can Scarf it, you can do a lot with it, specs it if you need to. But he really wanted Lando. Cleavor was a really cool Pokemon, which we see here in the team lineup. Hitmonlee was also available, and it gets Rapid Spin, which is, you know, nice to grab that. And Cleavor gets Defog. That's also really good to grab.
Yeah. And you know, like sometimes Defog is a double-edged sword because obviously you're removing your own hazards, but if you're also automatically setting up your own hazards, like if you're Cleavor and your spammable stab rock-type physical move also puts up Stealth Rocks, you can be a little bit more free with just hitting Defog and then still retaining field control.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should start a counter for when I say absolutely too, because I feel like I say that a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
And that having been said.
Yeah, and that having been said, ASCII, we have seen this team before, and I brought this up when we were watching this. This is a very similar looking team to when he brought against Scoots.
Yes, and we did not get to see that team do anything basically because it got immediately destroyed by Leafeon, but it is the same lineup of 6. It's in a different order though, so he did presumably rebuild it between those weeks, but we didn't really get to see the power of the War Turtle, right? Of the Kilowattrel, of the Alolan Doug trio. Even Scizor feels like it hasn't been coming that often,
But with that being said, I don't think there's much else to say, and we just kind of got to watch and see how Dan does in his first ever double dip match.
Woohoo! Inaugural match!
Woo!
Yay!
Murkrow starting out, probably doing some prankster thing.
Yep. Once again, I mean, it was a Murkrow weather setter thing. Goodbye. You're dead. Goodbye. Stone Axe. Woohoo! It's funny because you can't even taunt that, right? Like if you're Murkrow and you're like, oh, I don't want that thing to set up rocks, it's just going to kill you. So, you know, gets its rocks anyway.
Yep.
Okay, hey, this thing just immediately went for game, huh?
Yeah, it did, and it also just Terra Ice and just absolutely killed this thing.
Yeah, hey, wait a second.
With Rain Dish.
Yeah, now Rain Dish, I mean, it's recovering HP. Actually, that Rain Dish just kept it from dying to that Sucker Punch, I just realized.
It really did. Good job on Dan, by the way, for just doing a Sucker Punch and trying to kill this thing and not just sacking everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to try and play to his house. We'll go over this as we get there in the match, but a notable thing that happened was that the Hisuian Electro did outrun it and get off a hit, even after the Shell Smash, which meant that this was a modest, or at least not timid, War Turtle. And with that knowledge benchmarked in your brain, that turns out that this this Landorus actually outruns it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a Scarf Landorus, and we're stuck into Weather Ball without weather.
Yep, and just very inconvenient timing for the rain to end as well, because if it was locked into rain, or rather, a rain weather ball into this, it would have been super effective, and maybe would have done okay for the rest of the team. Like, not amazing, but
maybe.
If he'd gone into this like a lot sooner, still had a bunch of Pokemon up, then we could have actually maybe seen a competitive game. But as it stands, the War Turtle just takes 5 Pokemon basically, or 4, or no 5.
And that is such a shame. And you know, it's he's a new player. He's very unfamiliar with calcing stuff and looking at things, and also just I don't know if he would have calced speed or understood like, hey, Electro was faster, Landorus would be faster. I don't know if that would have correlated, you know?
Right. And I mean, it's relatively unintuitive. It's hard to, like, if you don't play on Showdown a lot, you know, you're not used to just mousing over your Pokemon and checking what its scarfed speed is, and then mousing over the opposing Pokemon and seeing how fast they are, or maybe comparing your scarf speed to Electro. So
yeah,
it's not the most intuitive stuff if you're coming from a background of like, oh, I pick my Score Bunny and I hit the Pyro Ball button through the whole game. You know, like that's different. You know, it's a different like muscle. But still, I mean, you know, like you said, it was good awareness. You know, he immediately went for his priority move and you know, got the damage where he could. And unfortunately, I mean, obviously, blundering like the Landorus aside, I think he played to his outs as well as he could.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And talking with him afterwards, he's having an absolute blast and really enjoys this whole process. And is just looking forward to playing more. And that's really cool that, you know, despite coming in first lost and everything, and I think that's kind of hard for some new players, but he's just like, oh, I want to play more. This is fun.
That's great. I mean, and that's good to hear.
I mean, that's all you can ask for. This
season has been a bit of a doomer season for a lot of people, so you got to be happy when someone brings some positivity into it.
Absolutely, but Askey does get the win with a 4-0, but Spood, there's more people to talk about.
Oh, yeah, there is. Speaking of doomer season, hey, we got Ninetales on the Dallas Duckletts. I love you, Ninetales. I'm sorry.
Ninetales, I love you.
Dallas Duckletts versus Scoots of the Dumblespoods army. Yes, Ninetales is one of my favorite people. He's a fantastic player. Someone who I did go on record saying that I thought Ninetales stocks were at kind of an all-time high. You know, he was seated relatively high within this division. You know, he was considered esteemed amongst the best of our crop and someone who could potentially contend for one of those two by spots in this division. And unfortunately, things have not been going great for Ninetales. He's taken a couple of rough losses now to Kenneth and to Askey, landing him at a fairly decent. I mean, he's a 2-2, but is a -4 diff, and he's, you know, he's gonna have to fight for this spot against, like, you know, potentially he could lose it to Kenneth, he could lose it to Firebolt, who as of week 4 is sitting in the contention spot over him because of the differential. So it's right now it's a little touch and go for Ninetales, and Scoots is a hard opponent, so you want to obviously bring your best and try to win, but if you're gonna lose, you got to keep that differential pretty tight, given that you're already behind on differential compared to Firebolt.
And I do see some fun Pokemon that Ninetales actually brought this week. I do see probably Rapid Spin, Great Tusk over there. I see Prankster, Illumise. I mean, I imagine it's Prankster. I don't know why you'd be, what is it, Shield Dust? Is the other one?
I guess it's Swarm, right? Can you mouse over real quick?
You know what? I can find out. Tinted Lens.
Oh, and Tinted Lens. Actually, that's kind of interesting. It could have been like a weird Hyper Offense Tinted Lens. Interesting note.
Yeah.
I mean, Illumise, you know, it puts up screens usually and like Thunder Waves and Encores. It just does all the things that Prankster Pokemon do that are annoying.
Yeah. I do see probably a Sheer Force for Alligator, because that's I think ability got this latest DLC, if I remember correctly.
I don't think, I mean, it's been its hidden ability since it got a hidden ability, as far as I can remember.
Oh, maybe that's just always been the case. But for Alligator, I feel like the past few seasons hasn't been drafted, and it's been overlooked a few times.
Oh, yeah, I mean, so Sheer Force anything is pretty scary, but you find a lot of the time that Sheer Force Pokemon tend to be special attackers, you know? Very famously, like, Nidoking has a higher physical attack than special attack, but is almost always run special because Sheer Force takes advantage of special moves a lot more. You know, a Sheer Force Earth Power off its special attack is better than an Earthquake that's unboosted off of its better physical attack, because Earthquake doesn't have a secondary effect, right? For Alligator, though, has a lot of, I mean, it's got the punch moves, which all have, like, status or flinch effects, like crunching moves. It's got, you know, like, I think it gets Liquidation, which is like
it does get Liquidation.
Chance to drop defense. So it's got a lot of physical moves that actually do benefit quite heavily from Sheer Force.
Yeah.
And Dragon Dance, which is scary.
That's right. I forgot that thing got Dragon Dance. That's terrifying, actually. Sheer Force Dragon Dance.
Terra. So like, it has a lot of stuff going for it in this season. So Scoot's having a good eye grabbing it.
Yeah.
It can look very scary. Skarmory also here doing presumably Skarmory things. I feel like I don't even know if he sent out Skarmory at all this season.
I don't think he has. I'm trying to think right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to go back and watch his replays.
No, because Espeon has done a lot of work. We do see Espeon here again as well. I see probably Speed Boost, Yanmega, one of our few Speed Booster Pokemon that is allowed. Weavile's
could also be a
here.
Tinted Lens, though. Tinted Lens is genuinely quite a strong ability.
Oh, that's true. Weavile's also here, which is super strong, but I feel like also hasn't done anything this season.
Yeah, although it looks really great into this matchup. I mean, it looks like it can do quite a lot of damage to Great Tusk and Staraptor and even Dusclops, like knocking its Eviolite.
Yeah. Well, Ilumi is also Bug Flying, right?
It's just Bug, I think, right?
Oh, it is just Bug. Never mind. Yeah.
Mono Bug.
Mono Bug. That's crazy.
And Galarian Weasel. So, I mean, like, Scoots has some hazard stuff, right? He can get up spikes, he can get up toxic spikes. You know, he can bounce back potential Prankster Thunder Waves with his Espeon Magic Bounce.
Yep.
And sticky webs and things like that. You know, he's got stuff to deal with Nihilus's tools, but I think Nihilus, I mean, again, you see a team with, like, webs plus Clefable, like, potential webs plus Clefable plus Great Tusk. That, I mean, you're going to have to play pretty tight to not just accidentally lose to one of those things.
Yeah, because Galvantula over here not only does it set up webs, but it gets Compound Eyes, boosting like a thunder, like a raw thunder out of this thing. Is crazy.
Over 90% accuracy. And obviously it's amazing into most of this team because I don't see any ground types and I don't even see any resists.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. That's crazy. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, you're right. A raw thunder off of Galvantula is terrifying into this team.
Yeah, and even just like Volt Switches, right? Like if it's a fast, maybe Specs or like Scarf, like could be very suffocating for Scoots to deal with. So I guess we'll just have to see who does it.
We will. Starting off, we get Galvantula starting and Espeon as well.
Yep. And interesting, so Scoot's running like a presumably dual screens Espeon. Nihilus revealing that he is Life Orb, and now he's dead to a crit psychic that wouldn't have otherwise killed.
Yeah.
He did at least burn the Terra on Scoots, you know, because he was going to Bug Buzz it.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Scoots' Terra is to live the Bug Buzz, and then didn't need to do that, so I guess there's that. Binky comes out, hits a Bug Buzz, doesn't do that much damage, but it does activate his Throat Spray, and it has a speed boost, and now it's behind screens, and it's really fast.
So speedy. Hey, you know, this thing is not unaware. No, that's not unaware.
Again. It's okay, but now it's at +1. This thing can't set up any more, like, special attacks, so as long as it doesn't get air slash flinch right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
not much you can do about that.
Once again, like, we'll say the opposite of Providence, right? Like, just this, he's being spitten every time he decides to bring that thing Magic Guard. It just...
Yeah, and we get another unfortunate flinch, because I think that was in Nightshade range to just die. And another one, back-to-back flinches. And a miss!
Needed to do 2 more Nightshades to kill, but still, I mean, if it hadn't flinched there, would have been fine. But he's been flinching way above his projected 30%. Yeah. And Nihilus has already lost 4 of his Pokemon to this thing. And there's just not really any more you can do. Because the Silamai's
lives.
Just doesn't have Thunder Wave. And even if it did, you'd have to rely on it getting full para and also hitting, which, you know, Nihilus is not being given any favors by luck. Nihilus has unfortunately now been 6-0'd again. Yeah. And that really fucking blows. Yeah, you know, the first one stung, but it happened to a lot of other people week 1, so like you can kind of let that go. But this deep into it, when your diff is already struggling, and to go out like that into a nasty crit, into multiple flinches, just depressing. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah, and it feels like there's so much RNG involved with a lot of that stuff and everything, but that's just the game at the end of the day. You know, you can't do anything about it. Yeah. It's just how Pokemon's played.
It's the game we play. I mean, you know, luck management is a skill, but, you know, there's only so much you can do. I don't know that I would have played it any differently if I were Nihilus.
Yeah.
And just sucks. It just sucks that you have to go out that way.
Yeah.
And it's just such a like, because again, it's one thing if you lose like 3-0, but to lose 6-0 is so tough because that's your second 6-0 of the season into you.
Yep.
And
it's week 5 at this point too, and there's only 2 more games to make up for that loss of -6.
And like you're in such relatively close contention that like you gotta really hope other people around where you're at are also just taking their lumps, and that the top end just gets way stronger, and then you end up maybe with 2 people who are pretty much already grabbing the buys, and you can just settle for a playoff spot. But it's hard. It's hard for Nihilus now. That made it way harder.
Yeah. Well, there's another match to watch.
Woohoo! Hey, speaking of somebody...
we have Firebolt of the Northern Ninetales and Snake of the Miami Milotics. And Firebolt been having some fun matches. Snake been having some fun matches. I've been enjoying Snake just kind of like... I don't know. He's playing fairly all right. I really enjoy just what he kind of brings to the table.
No, Snake's been moving and grooving. I think he's been playing really well. I think he's had a couple of really tough matchups up to this point. But he's looked very strong, or at least, relatively strong in all of them. He's, I think, as of going into this 1-3, right?
Yeah, I believe that is the case. We'll find out in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, 1-3, -2. So his diff is pretty good for being at 1-3. So he's like keeping him really close, but he's not picking up the wins where he needs them. But this is a pretty prime time win, right?
It really
Nihilus 6-0, dropping, again, not out of contention. He's still very much in contention, but his spot just became a lot more stealable. And if you beat Firebolt, that actually means that Firebolt and Nihilus and you are all going to be at 2 and 3, but you've got a big diff advantage. So this is like a big, mouth-watering moment for Snake. Conversely, Firebolt, after seeing Nihilus fall, is like, I gotta bag this guy just so I can make sure I get my playoff spot. Because if I can take home another win here, I'm pretty much just, again, I'm cruising.
And I don't think there's really much else to say. I do see his carry lineup. I see Ninetales coming again, Excadrill coming again, Goodra coming again, Dusknoir putting in some work for Firebolt this season. Gyarados is always just a threat no matter what. I do see Probopass again, Altaria, Chi-Yu, is that what this one is?
Chi-Yu, that's right.
Yeah. I get them all confused so much.
No, I mean, there's a couple of interesting dynamics, actually, if you don't mind me. Sorry, I
go ahead.
Off a little bit there. One of the most interesting things that I notice here is that Chi-Yu and Jirachi Speed Tie, they're both base 100, and that's both of their S tiers, so there's a lot of weight placed on the importance of those Pokemon, and it's doubly important if you're Chi-Yu, because Chi-Yu totally melts Jirachi, right? Super effective into both of its typings, with both of its typings, so... and Chi-Yu always so scary, and looking at this team, short of maybe like an AV Gyarados and like Goodra, there's not a lot standing in the way of a Chi-Yu that gets set up, and Chi-Yu has not really done a whole lot yet this season, so this is looking like a prime opportunity to you've got one, fire, dark resist, and it's weak to fire, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot, I think, here that Chi-Yu can do, and it's looking really good into this matchup.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. And I do think that Chi-Yu hasn't really gotten a chance to really shine just yet either. And I think this would be a cool match if it did,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's find out if it does. That's Iron Hands. That's not Chi-Yu. We're going to start over.
Bertram.
Bertram. What a name.
Now, Snake pretty much plays this opening perfect. I mean, he just completely, bagged what Firebolt was going to do.
Yep.
All the way down to, even turn 3 here where he breaks the veil away.
Oh, so painful. And then still stays in just to Earthquake, and then the Volt Switch doing only 2%. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, so Snake was kind of cooking there. He was just like, oh, I'm going to Volt Switch on the switch in, and I'm just going to get out of here. Like, he's going to bring in Dusknoir or something, but he cooked a little too hard. But Firebolt just...
just basically sacks Excadrill when, could have brought out Intimidate. Really nice. Drop that attack on that thing.
And then Firebolt is stunned and misses it, but I can No, and then this thing gets a burn, and now this thing is pretty much like shut down.
Yeah.
And look at how much it's doing, 36 on Burnt Stone Edge. It could have just...
Yep.
Now here, there is like some justice because he misses the Will-O-Wisp, but like I would have taken those 2 Stone Edges because they would have killed him,
Yeah. Solid Poltergeist come and just kill him though. We get a nice burn on Bartholomew over here.
Yep, outplays the Sucker Punch. Actually, I mean, Firebolt really starting to put it back together now that we're getting into the mid game.
Yeah.
Gyarados comes in, loses its Scarf, but like now Lotix is forced to switch because it can't do any damage. Firebolt does a sort of mid-ground like waterfall play because he doesn't necessarily want to Stone Edge into like an Iron Hands that can then fake out and get burn damage.
Yeah,
Stone Edge
41.
Hits. 41. Imagine if it was not burned.
Yeah. Weak Wind just killing this thing off. And at this point, Fireball's just up against a wall with 3 Pokemon left, and Goodra being at near half health, I'm pretty sure.
He's not out of it yet, as long as he's got a play that can deal with Chi-Yu. And here, I mean, this Poltergeist takes care of that. You know, he can't be faked out, so there's that. But this thing comes right in. Now, Firebolt plays this wrong. There's obviously no way to know that this is going to be Specs, but you probably still needed to sack your Dusknoir there so that you could save switch into your Goodra, Earthquake it once, then put it in range of an Aura Sphere from a Jirachi Speed Tie, which he does win the Speed Tie, so that Earthquake... There's always going to be shoulda, woulda, couldas there. There was a line of play that Firebolt could have made.
I'm a little surprised we didn't see a Shadow Sneak from Dusknoir, actually, at least for some chip.
Yeah, but the chip, I mean, it wouldn't have put it in range or anything.
That's fair.
I mean, he should have done it. If he had it, he probably would have.
That's fair.
But it's, you know, it's a bummer, right? Like, Firebolt, you know, the Ninetales dying on the opener, like, sure, you know, you were hoping that it would be a different, like, Iron Hands, and it was Heavy Slam, Brick Break, Fake Out. It was pretty much just, you know, custom built to counter your lead. So, okay. But then he played the Excadrill pretty bad, you know, letting it get hit really hard twice in a row without accomplishing anything. He switched in his Goodra hard into the Chi-Yu, which would have ensured it getting 2-shot. Just a little bit, you know. And again, Firebolt's mid game was great. I thought he played really, really well. But just at the beginning and the end, too much in Snake's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, you know, Snake does take the win, and there's only one more match to look at after this, with Firebolt losing 4-0 there. But we do have one more match.
We got one more match. We got Not Pimp of the Cracked Kricketunes versus Chemith of the Washed Up Wishiwashis.
Yeah.
Now this is the match of the week as far as like importance goes. Given now that well, actually, we'll go over the standings when we get there. But now going into this, these are both 3-1 players. So one of them is going to go up 4-1. One of them is going to go down 3-2.
Yeah.
So very important for determining who is looking the best to grab that bye. It doesn't guarantee anything, but this deep into the season, if you can lock in like a 4th win, that's pretty good. Because then you still have room to get another, like a 5th win or even a 6th if you just keep playing hot.
And here's the other thing too. Even with this win, they're both really close in diff. Like they're at 8 and 7th, with Not Pimp just having 8, and Chemith having 7, and their differential being at the same score. So it's just one difference. So if it's a close match and one of them wins or one of them loses, they can make that up. Like if the next player loses next week or whatever. So it's like neither are guaranteed into the second spot.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I mean, even the person who loses this match will still have a chance at that bye, depending on the future matches here. But this is a very pivotal match for determining like the tempo of the rest of your season.
Yeah. And I see some pretty solid Pokemon on these teams as well. I do like Kommo-o. Terapagos is here as well. Pheasantipity has been doing a lot of work, I feel like, this season. We do also see Grimmsnarl, probably just here prankster setup screens like usual. Parting shot. Porygon too, though. That's such a fun little guy. I like him. He's fun. He does fun Eviolite things, and he gets like a lot of move coverage and adaptability. Is it?
It has access to a lot of things. I think it has adaptability. It also has trace and download.
Analytic, that's what it is.
Analytic. Okay, excuse me. Yeah, that's the one. So all of its abilities are pretty good. I think it usually likes to run trace when it's trying to be a little bit more of a defensive type. What's funny is like Porygon can also Terra, which would in theory make it a lot better, but it kind of likes being normal most of the time, so it doesn't tend to be the Terra Sync.
Normal's a solid typing that kind of gets overlooked. People are like, well, you know, you're not super effective against anything. Yeah, but nothing's really that good against you except fighting.
Yeah, the thing is, like, having the Terra Ghost at least forces, like, a 50-50, you know, if someone looks at your Terra and says, okay, I can have a close combat or maybe go for a knock. But also, knocking into Porygon 2 is kind of always going to be the right play because you remove the Eviolite, so...
Yep.
You know, there's, like, potential 50-50s there, but I see why, like, you know, a Terra could be good on it, but I think it's actually not as much of a thing that shines with Terra as maybe a setup sweeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm really noting about this team is that Tinkaton looks like it goes kind of crazy.
Yeah, it kind of sits on Pheasantipity, actually, with exact opposite typings that just are immune to what it does.
Yep, walls the hell out of Pheasantipity, and I mean, it scares Komao depending on its set.
Bruxish doesn't really hit it, does it? But...
well, I mean, Bruxish can hit it with like a neutral wave crash for a lot of damage.
That's true.
And Bruxish can also be, with its ability Dazzling, it can be immune to Fake Out, which is nice. But notably, the thing... Oh, actually, no, Mold Breaker would mean it can go past Dazzling and Fake Out anyway. So yeah, Tinkaton is pretty custom built to mess with this team, unfortunately, now that I'm looking at it. But it's especially good into Terra Shell, which this was a problem we saw with Kemeth's match against ASCII, where he lost to that Ogre Pawn. That also had Mold Breaker, that also bypassed Terra Shell, that also made it so that Terrapago's not as bulky as it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Sorry, had a big yawn there. Oh, I'm awake now.
Okay.
So now it's time
to
wake up, energize for this last fight of Week 5 for Teal Division. UC coming out, which is usually a pretty solid lead. It does a lot of things. It paralyzes. It sets up rocks. It also kind of just Calm Mind sometimes. It does like short power sets that work really well on it. Nice screens and departing shot on Tinkaton actually going into Bellossom.
It's like a badass elf.
It kind of is a badass elf, isn't it?
Now, what this thing does like to do, though, especially in these like stealth rock sets, is just pester with Thunderwave.
Yeah.
Kemeth revealing this is a pretty... And I love the back-to-back Leech Seed to catch
so
the obvious.
Good.
Yeah, behind to reflect this thing. Ooh, so bulky. Getting off that strength sap too. So this is a full-on, like, I'm a defensive Bellossom. I'm just gonna hang out and sit here.
Yeah, solid 40% only on this thing.
Yep. Grimmsnarl comes out. Pimp catches it with a Gigaton. Gigaton Hammer there does a ton of damage. Kemeth decides to go for the light screen, knowing it can't Gigaton Hammer again, but also correctly, I wouldn't say correctly guesses, but just incidentally catches the knockoff as Pimp assumes that he won't stay in, but he does.
Yep. Nice Citrus Berry just being eaten to not even take that much knockoff damage. And this thing, Bellossom comes back out and just Strength Saps, gets health back, and just clicks Leech Seed here for Oh, actually, no, never mind. Switch it out.
Goes into Terrapagos, but again, like, not Pimp catching it with just like a really good Slitherwing switch. And with the rocks up and no boots revealed on Terrapagos, it doesn't even have its Terra Shell to threaten Slitherwing. And, just unfortunate from Cam because it looks like these stealth rocks are really causing him some grief.
Yeah. Another paralysis on his team.
Yep. Not Pimp just taking his time, spreading status, getting chip, getting his rocks up, keeping the field in his favor, burning those screen turns. Gets another paralysis. Now 3 of his remaining 5 Pokemon are paralyzed. Not Pimp with pretty much all the control right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this Tinkaton does have heavy-duty boots, so it's also not even taking rocks damage, which, even though it would be resisted by steel, it's a lot. It's not nothing. The amount of times that Tinkaton comes in, that chip would have been very valuable.
Yeah. Ice Beam does nothing against Pheasantipity here, and Not Pimp notices and just sends out this thing again, because Pheasantipity cannot do anything against Tinkaton.
Yep. Cam needed to start making some doubles there. He needed to predict this coming out.
Yeah.
But here, it doesn't even really matter. He could have doubled into this Bellossom. It wouldn't have played out any differently.
Getting back all the health.
Yep, that Strength Sap, it's always funny.
Leech Seed back out.
And this is the only damage he's gotten on this Tinkaton so far is the Leech Seed.
Yeah. Leech Seed's been going a long way this season.
Yep. Cam goes for an Encore there. This thing now, normally is a pretty bad speed tier, but honestly, base 50 into a team full of paralyzed Pokemon is not that bad, especially if a lot of them are running defensive investments and they're not invested in speed.
Yeah.
You actually do start to outrun stuff pretty fast. And goes right for the Starstorm.
Right into a Calm Mind, recover happening here, so that was pretty free Calm Mind. Surprised I didn't see a second Calm Mind come out here, but we do get a Terraform that just kills.
No, that was the right call from Kemet, because if he'd done a second Calm Mind, Yuxi would have come out outsped and then Thunderwaved it.
That's
so he wanted to catch it on the switch in, and he does correctly do that. So Cam is still playing to his outs as best as he can. It's not like over yet, but he really needs something that can take care of this Tinkaton. And he's had pretty good luck into these paralysis procs so far, but that is not going to stay the case.
Yeah, unfortunate paralysis there, and we do also get a Terra Grass on Tinkaton finally revealing itself, which means it cannot get leech seeded at all anymore.
Yeah, so now it's really tough to hit that Tinkaton. I mean, the benefit to that is that now it is not resistant to normal type moves.
Yeah.
And it's lost its immunity to poison, so Phantumps might be a little more helpful here.
Yep. You see rest into a Chesto Berry, which is always nice.
Resto Chesto, in theory, has his Terra Shell back, but obviously Mold Breaker Gigaton Hammer does not concern itself with such trivial things. Yep.
We do finally get the Tinkaton dead, but at this point, Kemet has lost a lot of health on most of his Pokemon that are left, and Para and Phantumps is really unfortunate and hard to work with.
And Not Pimp knows that thing's going to come out on the close combat, so he just U-turns out, knowing that it would also kill the Terrapagos, and it would do a lot of damage if not just outright kill the Bruxish on the switch in.
Yep.
And from here, it's pretty much just a lock.
Yep, Vacuum Wave coming out, just clean that up, and then we do see the funny fish finally coming out. Sorry, silly fish.
Silly fish.
Yeah, that's my bad.
Put some respect on that name.
Oh, I will do my best next time. Silly fish dying to a Blood Moon. Yep.
Locked up for Not Pimp with a pretty commanding looking 4-0. I mean, like, it's, it was a 47 turn game, but Not Pimp pretty much had the steering wheel the whole time.
Yeah. Tinkaton was just such a menace and very impressive in the Kemet's team. There really wasn't a lot he could do about it unless he really just played all his outs at the beginning to really start dealing with it.
Yeah. And I mean, not like, and it's easy to understand why Cam wouldn't do that. You have to spend a lot of resources to do stuff like that. You hope that things like your own Stealth Rocks are going to start wearing down that Tinkaton that's going to take Leech Seed damage. You might be able to get your death by 1,000 cuts, But it just, the field conditions, the early rocks for Pimp and Cam not having his own rocks, and the million Thunder Waves bringing the speeds below Ursaluna, just really, really tough.
Yeah. But that's week 5 in a nutshell. And would you take away the top half and I'll take the bottom half, and we could talk about some of these scores and start to really get an idea of week 6. But this is shaking up to be really interesting this season.
You're darn tootin'. Well, in first place, we've got Scoots of the Dumblespoods army at 5-0 plus 24. Okay, why don't you save some diff for the rest of us, man? Second place, currently, we've got Kracked Kricketunes, coached by Not Pimp, at a 4-1 plus 12. Literally half the differential of Scoots.
Yeah.
The third place, Cam of the Washed Up Wishiwashis, 3-2 plus 3 differential. And in fourth place, Snake now for the first time this season.
Yeah.
With a 2-3 plus 2.
With the bottom half of the division having a 2-3 at a -3 for ASCII of the Philadelphia Phantumps, with Firebolt right behind now at a 2-3 -4. Firebolt going from 4th to 6th place. And the way Ninetales at a 2-3 -10, and of course the Downtown Dragonites at an 0-5 -24.
Yeah, it's tough for Dan down there. I mean, again, it's you have to understand, it's never easy to take your lumps and be in last. And, there's all the nice things in the world we can say about, oh, well, you inherited the team, and, it doesn't matter, it's a mulligan, whatever, but still feels bad, you want to put on a good show.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
As far as everyone else goes, though, the thing is, this went from in just 1 week, this went from a division that was okay, you've got a top half, you've got a bottom half, all of the 1 and 3s just got a win.
And that's 4 2-3s that we now have, and even Not Pimp at a 4-1. If Not Pimp loses his last 2 matches, there's still 2 matches left, so that means anyone of the bottom 2 and 3s could get 2 more wins.
Yes. The thing is, realistically, it is somewhat unlikely that Not Pimp will drop out of playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
But it is entirely possible. Unlikely does not mean impossible. It doesn't even mean, that crazy. Very feasibly, he could still drop out, given that there are now 7 different people who are playoffs eligible going into the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, with Scoots pretty much locked in first. The only exceptions are him losing the last 2 matches, of course, and Kricketunes, not Pimp, getting a couple more wins or a win. But I don't think it won't be by diff. Like if it's a tie or whatever it is, Scoots will still be in first just because of diff alone. But it's crazy that you're right. Just second through third place, second kind of being locked in, but they're just up in the air. Like I don't think we're gonna see anything until the final week for the last 2 positions. Like any idea at least of who's gonna make it.
Yeah. The thing is that's funny too about Kricketunes is like Scoots is not only like pretty much guaranteed first, he is effectively fully guaranteed first if only, you know, so Scoots is guaranteed a bye. No matter what happens here, he will get away with either the first or second place spot, but he can only lose the first place spot to Kricketunes if Kricketunes wins both of his remaining matches and Scoots loses both of his remaining matches. There's no other option where he doesn't end up in first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going forward, though, really high-value matches still on the docket, right? Kenneth still has to fight Downtown Dragonites. If he doesn't make that like work for him, he could be in some serious playoffs trouble. Compare that to, you know, Firebolt versus Nihilus is next week. They are basically playing and the loser is out. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're Dunskies, and you need that win. Either way, you need that win.
Because even at a -10, Nihilus is third place is at a 3 in positive differential. That's it. That's not far away from -10. Like if Nihilus wins his next 2 matches well, and Kenneth loses his next 2 matches, like. You know,
what happened?
Yeah.
What's funny? So literally, the upcoming week is going to be the most important week, bar none, because we're going to see between Firebolt and Nihilus who gets knocked down, and also ASCII and Snake are playing each other, and so they're also both 2 and 3. So pretty much, one of ASCII and Snake and one of Nihilus and Firebolt is going to be out next week.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? I'm actually really excited to see how Week 6 pans out for Teal Division. I think this is probably the division to watch. I think with Violet and with Scarlet, we kind of have a really good idea of who's making it, who's not. But Teal is so up in the air. It's anyone's game.
Yeah, I would say in Scarlet and Violet, there's pretty much only 1 spot up for grabs between 2, maybe 3 people. Here, you could genuinely take any 3 people and throw them out, and it would be a perfectly logical like bracket.
Yeah.
You know, not only is there 1 spot up for grabs, you've got 7 people fighting for effectively 3 spots. So there's a lot left on the table here, and this could shake up not just by 1 player, but by like the whole top end in just 1 week.
Every win, every loss, and every bit of diff is going to make such a difference in these last 2 weeks. So please stay tuned, and we're going to keep our ears open and our eyes opener so we can see how it all ends. That's my new slogan. How do you like it? It's pretty rough.
Like it.
It's still in its preliminary stages, but
we'll workshop it. It's fine.
Well, yeah, we'll workshop it. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Please check out the other divisions. I don't know who's hosting what at this point, but you know what? Check them out, see how the matches went, and stay tuned for the penultimate week of Double Dip Draft coming up. Goodbye.